Today we are going to see the hemodynamic disorders. That is, in that we are in the hemostasis part. So, what is hemostasis? It's actually the tightly regulating process which maintains the blood flow in a fluid state and also in the normal vessels, and also allowing to form the hemostatic clot only at the site of injury. And the counterpart is the thrombosis. So, what it means is hemostasis is nothing but only the formation of clot or aggregate takes place only in the site of injury, but not anywhere else. This is which we know. But the counterpart is thrombosis. What is thrombosis actually? This is the clot or aggregate which forms in a normal endothelium. So this is something which is different, that not at the site of injury but in a normal vessel. So this involves the blood clot or thrombus formation in the vessels. So both of them actually have the three parts, that is a vascular wall, of course endothelium, platelets, and also the coagulation cascades. Let us see them one by one. So the normal hemostasis is a site where the vascular injury sequence of events take place. So the first one is the initial injury. So what is this initial injury? The arteriovasoconstriction, that is vasoconstriction, like this, as the vessels arterial vessels constrict by neurogenic mechanisms and also local secretions of some factors there. If you think this is an endothelium layer, some factors, local factors like endothelin is nothing but the endothelium derived vasoconstriction. So even this is a vasoconstriction with constricts. So why we are actually the blood vessel is constricting there? Because when the blood vessel constrict, there is only a light movement of flow of blood. So what happens, as the blood flow is moving so slow there, our body is like making a mechanism that to prevent the more bleeding, because already it's vascular, there is already vascular injury. So if it's again more blood formation, blood flow there, even this coagulation factors they wash away, and also it leads to more bleeding. So our body is so clever in this. And next, coming to the highly thrombotic subendothelial extracellular matrix. So what is this? Actually you can think this is an endothelium layer, and below is the subendothelial extracellular matrix, and below is the basement membrane. So I think you have understood it. So what happens is it's exposed as a if there is an injury, it gets exposed. Because of its exposing, it facilitates the platelet adherence and also the activation of next other factors, release of the secretory granules. So some granules are like this release. Within the minutes, the secreted part recruit the additional platelets, leading to the aggregation formation, that is nothing but the hemostatic plug. So what happens is, it's like attracting factors, these secreted granules from the subendothelium, they like calling other coagulation factors to the area and leading to the clot formation or aggregate there. So this is known as the primary hemostasis. And I'm next coming to the factor 3, thromboplastin, tissue factor exposed at the site of injury, and also the tissue factors are the major conjunction with the factor 7. So this tissue factor binds with the factor 7. This factor 7 is a major in vivo initiator of the coagulation cascade. So remember, factor 7 is using the thrombin, because we know this thrombin is playing a main role in converting the fibrinogen to the insoluble fibrin, that is creating a meshwork and also induce the additional platelet requirement activation. So this is the secondary hemostasis, forming the initial platelet plug. So the initial platelet plug is formed in only the secondary hemostasis. Here, these are all, if this is a vascularized injured area, if you think, then there are many factors coming there, and also this is the secondary hemostatic plug, that is because of the conversion of fibrinogen into fibrin, and here you can see the meshwork is formed. And the polymerized fibrin and the platelet aggregate forms a solid there, that is a permanent plug, because it's forming a permanent solid there. To prevent the further hemorrhage and counter the TPA mechanism is set to motion to limit the hemostatic plug only to the injury. So what is this counter TPA we are going to learn? Actually what does it is, it just only puts that plug only at the site of injury, doesn't allow to move to the other parts. And next, coming to the endothelium, our main key role. So key role in the hemostasis as a balance between the anti and prothrombic activities of the endothelium determines the thrombus formation, propagation, and also dissolution occurs. So because it's a key role, because it is the one which balance both the anti and prothrombic. Anti means actually no clot formation, of course, in the case of normal blood vessels, and the prothrombic means which is allowing to form the aggregations there. So normally exhibits the platelets, antiplatelets, anticoagulants, and fibrinolytic properties. So after injury, normally when in a normal state they produce antiplatelet, because we always don't want clots or aggregates in a normal tissue because it's dangerous. It doesn't lead easy flow of blood. So after injury only they acquire the numerous procoagulant activities, and in trauma especially they are activated by the infectious agents and also hemodynamic forces, plasma mediators, and also of course cytokines. So let us see the antithrombic property, that is in a normal vascular tissue. So under the normal circumstances, the endothelial cells are actively prevent the thrombosis by producing the factors that block the adhesion, aggregation, and also inhibit the coagulation and lysis. So what are those factors present in a normal vascular tissue? Let us know. So those are the antiplatelet effects, like the endothelium prevents the thrombogenic subendothelium extracellular matrix, and the non-activated platelets that don't adhere to the endothelial cell, of course. And even if the platelets are activated, the PGI2, the prostaglandin subject, and the nitric oxide help to impede the platelet adhesion. Both are the vasodilators and inhibitors of the platelet aggregation. So the important to remember is the PGI2 and nitric oxide. These are the ones which help our normal vascular tissues to be normal, because if the platelet tries to form also, it just like pluck out or impede like this from the endothelial surface. And they are the vasodilators, of course, because as their antiplatelet effects, they should be vasodilators, because vasodilator means the vessel has like this blown out and the blood can move freely. So even if the clotting factors are there, it washes away. So also the ADP is activated for the lysis of the ADP and thereby inhibiting the platelet formation, because the ADP also plays an important role for the formation of platelets. Now let's see the anticoagulant effects. These are mediated by the endothelium membrane heparin-like molecules. They are not like heparin but heparin-like molecules, and they are greatly increased in the anticoagulants by the antithrombin 3. So, and there are also thrombomodulin tissue factor pathway inhibitors. So, what happens to the thrombin? We know thrombin is the main activator of the platelet coagulation. So, what happens to thrombin is it is binded by the thrombomodulin. As it is binded with this, the procoagulant, actually this is a procoagulant, converts into the anticoagulant via the activity of the vitamin C. Also, vitamin C plays a role. So, which inhibits the clotting by inactivating the factors 5A, 8A, because this 5A, 8A are inhibited means the 10 is inhibited. That if so 10 is inhibited, then thrombin doesn't form, so the cycle stops. So also the proteinase tissue factor pathway inhibitor TFP1, which inhibits the factor 7A and 10A. So the TFP1 is also an anticoagulant. And the fibrinolytic effects, that is the tissue type plasminogen activator TPA, tissue plasminogen activator. It's a protease which usually cleaves the plasminogen to form the plasmin. This plasmin in turn cleaves the fibrin to degrade the thrombi. So the plasminogen is converted into plasmin, and this plasmin is cleaving our fibrin, means it is not allowing the clot. So the fibrinolytic effects, anticoagulant effects, and antiplatelet effects, and also the antithrombotic properties belong all in a normal vascular tissue, but not in a vascular injuries site or case, because in the vascular injuries site there are other defects, other alterations. What are those? We'll see. So the prothrombic properties, which is when takes place in the vascular injury, of course. So in the injured tissue, it takes place leading to the changes in the platelets, coagulation proteins, fibrinolytic system. So how they are affected? Platelet effects. In the injured lead the platelets to contact the underlying extracellular matrix and adhesion with the von Willebrand factor. If you know the von Willebrand factor lent effects, that is the response to the cytokines like tumor necrosis factor, interleukin 1, and bacterial endotoxin, endothelial cell synthesis, the tissue factor, which in turn leads to the activation of the extrinsic clotting cascade, and also the factor 9A, 10A also involved. So the antifibrinolytic effects are, they secrete the inhibitors of the plasminogen, because there they should activate the plasminogen so that the clot will not form, but here they need to inhibit the plasminogen because it should not break down our thrombin. Here the main role is that. So, and they limit the fibrinolysis and tend to favor the thrombosis. So platelets are actually the disc-shaped structures, anucleate, and they are formed from the fragments of the megakaryocytes in our bone marrow, all of us know, and the critical role in the hemostatic plug, which seals the vascular defects and provides the surface for the activated coagulant factors. So it has the two types of granules which is important, that is the alpha granules and the gamma granules. So the alpha granules are actually attached to the membrane with the help of P-selectin, and they contain the fibrinogen, factors 5, 8, platelets factors 4, and also factor beta, etc. And the gamma granules contain the ADP, ATP, calcium, histamine, serotonin, epinephrine. So all these are like promoting the coagulation. So after the injury, changes in the platelets. So after the injury, the changes in the platelets are, that is the adhesion, change in shape, secretion and aggregation. So change in shape, it's like it forms into a spiky structure to easily adhere to the vascular injury site. So the platelet adhesion, with mainly the interaction with the von Willebrand factor, which is like a bridge between the platelet surface receptors like GPIB and the exposed collagen. So here you can say this von Willebrand factor is like a bridge between the exposed platelets here and also the receptors like the GPIB. So it's a bridge between the platelet surface receptors GPIB and exposed collagen. This collagen is again released from the subendothelial extracellular matrix. So this bond between the von Willebrand factor and GPIB is necessary to overcome the shear forces of high force of flowing blood. So the genetic disorders of VVF receptors lead to the bleeding disorders. So here if you see this, if we will try to understand this diagram, so this is a von Willebrand factor between the collagen and the platelet receptor like the GPIB. So with the help of this GPIB, the von Willebrand factor is getting connected to the platelet, and one platelet is connecting to the other platelet with the help of a receptor called GP2B3A complex. So this GP2B3A complex is also present to the other platelet, and both of them are connected in between by a fibrinogen. And again this process continues and the coagulation completes here. So this is how the platelet form. So if there are defects in this von Willebrand factor or GPIB or also GP3, 2B and 3A, they may lead to the abnormalities causing in the coagulation. So the second of the both granules occurs after the adhesion. In the release of the dense bodies like the calcium is important mainly for the coagulation, and also the ADP is important, and also the platelet activation leads to the negative charge phospholipids on the surface and they bind to the coagulation. So as the platelets are activated, the whole surface becomes a negatively charged and they bind easily to the calcium and serve as a site for the assembly of various components with various coagulation factors. So when all these coagulation factors are reached at the site only, then only this coagulation cascade performs. So now platelet aggregation. It follows the adhesion and also granule release in addition to ADP. The vasoconstricted thrombase, thromboxane, that is TXA2, is important for amplifying, leading to the primary plug. And this is a reversible but is stabilized by thrombin. So this is so the primary plug is always reversible, that is we can easily destroy it and form it again. But the thrombin and the PAR on the platelet membrane and with the ADP and also the TXA2 causes furthermore aggregation, leading to the next platelet contraction, forming an irreversible fused mass of platelets, that is secondary plug. So the secondary plug is the strongest because it is formed by the association of thrombin, PAR, ADP and also the TXA2. And next the thrombin converts the fibrinogen into insoluble fibrin, this is already known, and this fibrin cements the platelets in place. So even sometimes a non-cleaved fibrinogen is also important for aggregation, that is even fibrinogen plays an important role in the clotting factor or aggregation, but also the important role is mainly by insoluble fibrin. And next the ADP. What actually we are saying that ADP is required, but what it does, that the ADP triggers the change in the GP2B 3A receptors, leading to binding of fibrinogen and promoting the aggregation. So this ADP is mainly required to bind this GP3A complex with the fibrinogen. So deficiency of the Glanzmann thrombocytopenia, or that is the GP2B, GP3A, leads to again bleeding disorders, of course, because no binding, no coagulation, bleeding. The therapeutic agents are used on the receptors to block the ADP by especially the clopidogrel or by binding to the GP2B and 3A. So next the RBC, WBC are also found in the plug. WBC plus platelets are attached by P-selectin, and the WBC is attached to the endothelium by some other receptors. So both this WBC RBC play an important role in the inflammation and accompanies the thrombosis. So the thrombin also drives the thrombin associated inflammations by stimulating the neutrophils, monocyte adhesion, generating the chemotactic fibrin split products during the fibrinogen cleavage. So the thrombin site is also an inflammatory site because of our neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, etc. So the platelet endothelial cell interactions, they are mainly because of the nitric oxide and PGI2 and also TXA2. Actually this PGI2, TXA2 are prostaglandin products, but the PGI2 is a vasodilator, TXA2 is a vasoconstrictor. So it is a vasoconstrictor, so it is at the site of injury which promotes the coagulation, the vasodilator which inhibits the platelet formation. And the aspirin tablet, we know what is the function is. It's an irreversible cyclooxygenase inhibitor in the coronary thrombosis, and its ability to permanently block the platelet TXA2 synthesis, and also PGI2 is inhibited. So TXA2, it's an activator at the site of coagulation, so it leads to clots, but this is inhibited that to prevent the clotting or aggregations in our coronary diseases, because that is the main reason which stops the blood flow leading to the disease. And also the PGI2 is inhibited, but the PGI2 is good enough because it inhibits the platelet formation, but for the extra safety even the PGI2 is inhibited. And next we have the coagulation cascade. The coagulation cascade is known as the third arm because the main focus is to finally form the thrombin whatever the coagulation cascade is the most important factor which converts the fibrinogen to the insoluble fibrin, and this encloses all the coagulating components in place in secondary plaque, and the fibrin cross-linked by the factor 12A, and this 12A is in turn activated by the thrombin again. So this reaction contains the enzyme, substrate and also cofactor, and they are assembled on the phospholipid membrane and held by the calcium ions. So the binding of factors like 2, 8, 9, 10 to the calcium and also alpha carboxylic group to the glutamic acid on the proteins, this reaction uses the vitamin K as a cofactor. So the vitamin K is also important for the coagulation reaction, and antagonized by drugs like Coumadin, widely used as an anticoagulant. So Coumadin is also an anticoagulant. So the extrinsic and intrinsic pathway. So what are this extrinsic and intrinsic pathway? Let us see here. Here like this you can see this is extrinsic and the intrinsic pathway. Actually I have a simple code like we'll count the numbers from back to remember the factors activated here. First 12, 11, 9, 8 and here 10. Actually 12, 11 after that 10, but we'll put 10 because the final product of both of this is 10 and this 10 finally forms a thrombin. So this is what, and here after 9, 8 here goes to 7 and 10. And this 10 also, here there are some more reactions which again leading to 10, that is the 5 into 2 into 1. So this 5 is from here, you can see 5, 2, this 2 is from here and 1. So finally the thrombin is formed and leading to the coagulation. So as discussed, the extrinsic and intrinsic pathway. The extrinsic pathway requires exogenous recurrence which is from outside. So also activated by the tissue factor or factor 3, membrane bound lipoprotein are expressed in the site of injury. And the clinical and the intrinsic pathway by activation of factor 10, and this required the factor 12, that is the Hageman factor, to thrombogenic surfaces, and even glass would suffice there. In the clinical laboratories usually assess the function of the two arms of the coagulation by the two standard methods. So the two arms, two standard methods, that is a prothrombin time, that is PT. So the PT is to finding the extrinsic pathway, and the PTT, that is partial thromboplastin, that is screens for the intrinsic pathway. So the PTT for intrinsic and PT for extrinsic. In the intrinsic pathway there are like factors 12, 9, 10, 8, 5 and 2. And here the factors are 7, 11, 5. This is completed by a tissue factor and also phospholipase to the citrated plasma, that is the sodium citrate chelate calcium, and prevent the spontaneous clotting. So the thrombin with the help of the PARS, what is PARS? Is a protease activated receptor forms the pro-inflammatory effects, that is leading to the, so PARS leads to the inflammation belonging to the 7 transmembrane G protein coupled receptor family. So the PARS expressed on the endothelium, monocytes, dendritic cells and T lymphocytes and also other cell types. The receptor activation is usually activated by the cleavage of the extracellular end of the PAR. So this generates the clipped receptor, thereby causing the conformational change which triggers the signaling. And once the activation of this cascade of the coagulation must be restricted to the site of injury to prevent the clotting, run away to the intervascular seat. So if it run away, it causes the embolism. And next we have the antithrombins. The antithrombins are like antithrombin 3, which is activated by binding to the heparin-like molecules on endothelial cells. Hence the clinical useful of administration heparin to minimize the thrombosis. Easily understood. So the protein C, S are vitamin K dependent that act in the complex that inactivate the 5A, 8A. If these are inactivated, 10A inactivates and thrombin doesn't form. And the protein C activation by the thrombomodulin, because we know thrombomodulin is also an antithrombotic. And the TFP1 protein inactivate the 7A, because TFP1 is also an thrombotic agents. And the fibrinolysis, this is accomplished by the activation of plasmin, and the split products also act as an anticoagulant. We know this. An increase in the FSP, that is a fibrin derived dimers, is used in the diagnostic of abnormal thrombotic states, including the disseminated intravascular coagulation, that is the DIC we are going to learn, and the deep venous thrombosis, and also pulmonary embolism. So the plasminogen forms a plasmin that is active form either by factor 12 pathway or by plasminogen activators. So the important is the TPA, that is a therapeutic agent, fibrinolytic activity in thrombosis area, and the urokinase UPA in plasma, it activates the plasmin in fluid phase. And also the plasminogen, it is cleaved to plasmin by the bacterial enzyme, especially streptokinase. So the significant in the bacterial infections. So prevent excess plasmin lysine. The thrombin elsewhere in the body, it is prevented by inactivating with the alpha-2 plasmin inhibitor. So the endothelial cells also fine-tune the coagulation or anticoagulation balance by releasing the plasminogen activator inhibitor. It blocks the fibrinolysis by inhibiting the TPA binding to fibrin and confers an overall procoagulant effect. So the PII production is increased by thrombin as well as certain cytokines and probably plays a role in the intravascular thrombosis accompanying the severe inflammation.